Okay, I am so happy to have Sarah here today. Sarah is a Coimbra Protocol patient who has experienced some amazing healing through using the therapeutic doses of vitamin D along with so many other aspects of the protocol. But I'm going to let Sarah tell her story. First off, Sarah, can you just introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, sure. So I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis several years ago, and that was during my graduate studies. Have a background in psychology, human sciences, statistics, biostatistics, and behavioral neuroscience. And I'm a therapist in private practice, and also a psychology professor. So I was dealing with, I think, what is generally considered a heavy diagnosis, kind of in the throes of my professional peak years, as I would like to say. And I actually stumbled across the Coimbra Protocol on accident. I was following YouTube video, Dr. Berg, Eric Berg. I really don't necessarily agree with everything he says, but I really appreciate his teaching style, and he makes complex processes very simple to understand, comparatively speaking. And he had done a video on autoimmune diseases and vitamin D, and I go through, when I watch his videos, I go through the links that he leaves because they're in reference to the research or whatever he's speaking about in the video. And he happened to leave a link for the vitamin D, the Coimbra Protocol, and that's actually where I found it.
Awesome. Okay. Well, can you just describe a little bit more about the symptoms you were experiencing, what you were going through at the time, how bad was your diagnosis, and if you tried any other treatments as well?
Sure. The symptom, I think fatigue was definitely very severe. It was something that I had struggled with for quite a while, off and on. I had a sneaking suspicion that it had something to do with diet or environment or something like that. I had tried different dietary protocols. I noticed that I tended to feel better when I was fasting, but it's not sustainable to never eat. So I had looked into all different things. I had been diagnosed with a thyroid issue, which completely cleared up when I took out gluten. I have been diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome several years prior. I had difficulty staying awake in the middle of the day, and maintaining some of my day-to-day functioning, particularly with respect to social relationships, and then occupational as well was a challenge. Graduate school was also a challenge. It's a little more flexible than a 9 to 5. So I kept odd hours, part of which was just around the rest that I tended to need. Um, in the year that I was diagnosed with MS, which was probably 10 or 15 years after I was having symptoms, um, or the onset of symptoms, I had 3 falls in that year. Lots of tripping, coordination issues, dexterity issues, stiffness, spasticity in my legs, that whole general inflammatory process that was kind of off and on. Historically, it would kind of come and go, and I wouldn't do much about it, which makes sense. It's relapsing remitting MS that I was diagnosed with. And so there were things that became more difficult to overlook or ignore. The falls were definitely one of those things. The paresthesia, the tingling and strange sensations that were temperature sensitive, particularly my left arm and the left side of my face. Those were the biggest things. Also, some ocular motor symptoms. I had a bout of what they think was optic neuritis about 15 years prior. So I had, I guess, what you would call a lot of the standard symptoms. I would say fatigue was probably the fatigue, and then the concerns around falling were
Right.
probably the most noticeable, I would say.
Yeah. Wow. So it sounds like you were experiencing symptoms for quite a while. Um, and how long was that before you found your doctor who practices the Coimbra Protocol?
Let's see. It would have been 3 years ago now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was about 3 years ago.
So, what has your experience been with the protocol? And are you still on it?
Yeah, so the doctor, so when I had looked at the website for, the vitamin D, I've been looking for a doctor in my area, and I sort of what I found at the time was there was only 5 doctors in America practicing this.
Mm.
So
Right.
and I chose the doctor I did because he's a general physician, and I wanted somebody who was trained in the allopathic area, and then also had this training. So that's how I found and chose him. And he had been talking to me about the general course and how the Coimbra Protocol works and what I needed to do in terms of maintaining a low calcium diet, the anti-inflammatory effects of vitamin D. I kind of had a sneaking suspicion of that. As I mentioned, I was looking into to uh, I was listening to some things Dr. Berg said, and I knew with my symptoms that there was something with inflammation.
Mhm.
So I had initiated, before I was diagnosed, I had initiated higher doses myself of vitamin D. I think when I was diagnosed with MS, I went through the emergency room. Um, I was in the middle of a general neurology workup, and I had called the neurologist treating at the time, and he said, with the numbness related things, he's like, well, I don't he wasn't sure if I had a stroke or something. They didn't know, and so they recommended for me to go to the hospital. And when they did the lab work at the hospital, they found my vitamin D levels were moderate, even though I had been taking already 60,000 IUs on my own accord. So this is
Wow,
before.
moderate to their standards, huh? Do you know what the level actually was?
I want to say that it may have been around 60, 50, something like that. But that was in the setting of me already taking 60,000 IUs, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Right,
Um,
right.
and then after in the hospital, they did all the tests, and then they did neurology consult, and then I ended up being getting routed to the MS center in the vicinity with a specialist. Um, and I got several opinions about, what was happening. They weren't exactly sure at first. Some of the MRIs were a little irregular, as they are. And I have an uncle, a grandmother, and a great grandmother with MS. who also had kind of a um, uh, similar radiologic images, um, and I, they wanted to put me on these medications, which I wasn't comfortable with, and I, got connected to the doctor to do the vitamin D therapy, and he mentioned, I think it was around 6 months where he said, this is where I tend to see changes after 6 months of this protocol.
Mhm.
Um, at that time too, I had also made significant alterations to my diet, like after that experience. So I noticed that that
On
was,
your
uh,
own.
well, it was kind of on accident. So I definitely think the gut brain axis is the thing. I'm very confident in that. Um,
Mhm.
just I see that mostly in a cause and effect way and in my own circumstances, and I'm very reserved about assuming causality, but that's that's really a big one. I would say that I feel confident in terms of the gut brain axis,
Right.
the nervous system more broadly. But yeah, I was in a situation where I had been trying a specific diet for MS that didn't agree with me. And I ended up having a lot of challenges with it. And then I went full like carnivore, which is very different from what they recommend.
What did they recommend? What were you trying that didn't work?
I was doing the Walls protocol. In defense of that, I would say it was self-guided. I did meet with a nutritionist and followed it to the best of my ability. But it was, my body doesn't really care for vegetables or fiber, so
So it's a lot of vegetables, a lot of fiber, not a lot of meat or just
So, well, there's different levels of the Walls protocol as I understand it, and there is meat and things towards the one that's more of a ketogenic, right? Ketogenic protocol or lifestyle, which I think I love that whole idea, particularly given how many diseases are connected to metabolic issues. It seems almost common sense in certain areas, but the common sense, I guess maybe it seems very reasonable, but not common.
Mhm.
So a lot of people don't seem to be familiar with it.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
it's interesting that Dr. Coimbra recommends a different diet with less meat, mostly focused on fish. But yeah, I believe in biological individuality, but something that works for one person might not work for everybody. But I'm glad that you had access to all of the information you did to make your own educated health choices. It sounds like you found what works for you. Um, and then when you met your doctor and started on the Coimbra protocol, was he okay with you continuing your carnivore diet? And what else? I guess explain to me what it was like being on the Coimbra protocol at first. Was it a big change, or what were the changes? And how did you adjust to everything?
It was not a big change. One of the things I really like about the protocol is how easy it is. And how inexpensive it is. You're talking about liquid vitamin D. I think it's very, very reasonable for the average person to be on this protocol. There's not a big ask, I would say. So I really like that. It was very easy, especially when you're talking about MS, at least for me, there was a lot of cognitive fatigue too. So when you're talking about putting extra effort or doing this, it's like, no, I'm going to do the easier thing. And so that was really nice about it. Okay, I have to take this vitamin D and maintain a low calcium diet. I already drink 2 to 3 liters of water every day anyway. So very straightforward, very simple. And then yeah, around I would say it was 6 months to a year, I started seeing improvement in symptoms. My MRIs were not worsening. In fact, they had come back improved in certain areas, which I think was a little confusing to the neurologists treating me at the time. And so, it's a different area of treatment than what they're familiar with.
Right. Now, you sent a picture of some of your supplements. Can you just kind of go over some of the other things that you added, or were they added because of your own decision, or were they recommended as part of the protocol?
Yeah, so and the sorry, I think I missed your previous question more directly. The vitamin D, the doctor for treating me at the time with the vitamin D protocol was very supportive of my dietary and mentioned that he had multiple patients on carnivore, and that they had very good results with it. So he was super supportive of that. Just trying to keep. I had a one mishap with calcium at one point, and I didn't realize like from another source it was coming from. I think it may have actually been mineral water or something
Oh.
that I was drinking. It was like 6 or 8% calcium, and I was drinking too much of that, and so yeah, there was a little bit of a learning curve with that, but for the most part, easy. And the supplements that he recommended were the ones already consistent with the Coimbra protocol. There's a multivitamin that and one of the other she's a naturopathic doctor, I believe, who also administers the Coimbra protocol, and she actually has a Coimbra protocol vitamin, which yeah, it's definitely one of the cleaner supplements I've seen. It even has the package date on there. And it's a vitamin that has the multiple B vitamins. There's some trace minerals in there as well. Um, and it is on a scheduled, the instructions are to take it 4 times a day. And I think that is related to or that's with the intention of that it's always in your system, right? So some
Mhm.
of these things are water soluble. So if you're taking it multiple times a day, it's not a one shot deal, right? Through your digestive tract. So
Yeah.
hmm yeah, 2 to 3 liters. So I was pretty good about doing that already. And then on carnivore, which is it's a type of ketogenic diet anyway. The water would be necessary anyway because there's not carbohydrates for the water to hold on to. So you kind of need to regularly replenish. So it was pretty straightforward, and it was also really conducive to I'm not necessarily a foodie, and carnivore makes it very easy because you're getting all the nutrients you need in that sitting, and then you don't have to eat for 6 or 7 hours. So it works out well that way because I'm never a snacker or anything. So it's nice to just sit down and get high dense nutrients and then be done, and go on with your day.
Mhm.
Hmm
Yeah, yeah. So, tell me just a little bit more about your calcium, the one issue you ran into, and do you know how high your vitamin D level got? And then what were your symptoms that you started noticing that you then related to the maybe hypercalcemia? You were getting too much calcium in your blood or your urine.
I had a vision related issue. And I had contacted the doctor and I was like, hey, something's wrong. right? And so there was an idea around maybe it was destabilizing in some area, but we weren't really sure.
Mhm.
So that's when, we he checked the lab work and was like, "Oh, whoops, what's going on here? You need to, and then we tried, he kind of asked me, what is it that you're consuming, those kind of things. And we found out, okay, I'm having too much calcium, and we kind of, localized, the identified, um, uh,
Culprit.
yeah, the culprits. So I had to, make some adjustments there. And I wasn't consuming dairy or anything. So it was like a little bit confusing, but definitely a lot of mineral water. So I backed off of that for a little while and learned kind of how much of it I could actually have and things like that. And then, yeah, so it was mostly like a visual related symptom that I had experienced that kind of flagged, that was a flag to check the lab work.
Right, right. And how much vitamin D were you taking at the time? And do you remember, do you know what your level got up to?
Oh,
Or what
yes.
is, I guess, what is your level in general too? I'm curious.
So with the vitamin D protocol, the doctor actually doesn't take that level
Yeah.
because it's less relevant, right? So it's really the parathyroid that is the teller in terms of where the dosage will go. I did take it out of curiosity myself. I don't remember the level, but what I can tell you, whatever the range was, it was I think it was like 50 points over whatever the range was, only because I remember going to um, it was the general physician I was seeing in my area at the time, and I don't remember if it was an annual checkup. There was a reason I had gone there, and she said, "Your vitamin D level is way too high. You need to come off of this," like that, those sort of things. So I found out by accident, yes, that it was way out of range.
Mhm.
But at the time, I think I must have been on 70,000 IUs a day, and I take 78,000 now, which is where I kind of leveled off at.
Okay. So that's you do you feel like in terms of your symptoms and your healing, do you feel like you've kind of healed? Are you still having to put up with any particular symptoms that have just remained, or overall your overall healing experience from the Coimbra Protocol?
My overall healing experience from the Coimbra Protocol, I would say, has been remarkable. If you would have told me 3 years ago that I would have made so much of a recovery, I wouldn't have found it believable. Mostly because of how old I felt at the time. I was just the level of energy that seemed to be required for my day-to-day tasks was very difficult to describe. But the best way I can describe it is, with MS, it does seem like an accelerated aging process, which, if you're talking about neurodegeneration, that is a great way to describe it,
Yeah.
because you're talking about death of neurons and demyelination and all kinds of things, that are related to dying at the cellular level. And so I felt well beyond my years physically, and I remember planning things. I was trying to do, I had to restart reprioritizing my day because I noticed that by mid-afternoon I was done. So whatever I needed to do had to be earlier on in the day, and it was like I was racing time, if that made sense. And then when I was napping in the middle of the day, when I would take the nap and wake up, I wasn't particularly motivated. I think at least low-grade depression is something that people don't talk about with MS, which I think is very much an oversight and should be should be more discussed. It's very easy to have that chronic sort of low-grade depression in that circumstance because of how physically limited you are in certain areas. So yeah, I would say, I don't know if I answered your.
Well, now you don't have to reschedule
Oh,
your day anymore. Like how
no.
compared to how are you feeling now?
Yeah, now, so drastic improvements from then. I don't have to do that at all. I don't actually take naps anymore. The one of the most remarkable things, and I think especially other people with MS would probably appreciate knowing, is that I went from needing 11 hours of sleep a day to 6, which is very different. I don't have caffeine or anything like that in my diet. I think carnivore was also super helpful because of all the B vitamins that I'm getting, soluble, animal fats, things like that. Um, and so that has been very life changing in many ways because it felt like before I was just losing time. And now it sort of feels like I've been gifted with time because I have a lot more of it and my energy is much higher quality. I'm dancing ballet again. I have a private practice. I teach. I do things with the church and friends and family. And so I am the same, if not more active than other people my age who don't have MS or don't have an MS diagnosis. So, for me, I think the Coimbra Protocol alongside the dietary changes have been very empowering. That's the best way I would describe it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Coimbra.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Coimbra, and thank you, Dr. Berg, for
Yeah.
talking about Dr. Coimbra.
Right. Yes. Gosh, who knows if you would have found Dr. Coimbra's protocol if it wasn't for Dr. Berg, I'm gonna have to say we're gonna have to say thanks to him as well.
Yeah, and
Um,
he actually recently interviewed Dr. Coimbra.
mhm.
I saw that. My doctor who does the vitamin D protocol
Yeah.
sent me that link. So I thought, wow, what a great way to disseminate the protocol because Dr. Berg has a very far reach. So I
Yes.
thought
Yeah.
I was really, really excited when I saw
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. 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 I'm so glad that he's been talking about vitamin D. And I mean, we get a lot of people coming to us and grassroots health from Dr. Berg too. So very grateful for him.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, so what advice do you have to others with MS about seeking the Coimbra protocol and figuring out whether or not it's a good fit for them? Do you think it's a good fit for everybody in your situation? Or what hesitancies did you have you heard about others having? If you could talk to them in person one-on-one right now, what would you say?
I think one of maybe the common ideas would be, oh, wait a minute, what are the consequences of a low calcium diet, right? Something like that. I think there's a common misconception around that and things like osteoporosis. And I actually, that brings me to the point on the bone density scan. So my bone density has actually significantly increased on the Coimbra protocol, and that is with substantially less calcium, which is kind of funny, and a lot more vitamin K2,
Mm-hmm.
which is also what was prescribed. I think I forgot to mention that with the Coimbra protocol. And my understanding of that is that the K2 keeps the calcium in the hard tissues rather than in the soft tissues where it doesn't belong.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's a lot of deficiencies around that particular nutrient, K2. It's very high in meat, so that helps me a lot as well. since I was also went on carnivore. But yeah, my bone density went from, I think my um the doctor who's working with me with vitamin D actually recommended, he said it would be very, not recommended. He said it makes sense for you to go on something like, I think it was ostenol, something for osteoporosis, because my bone density came back at negative 2.4 and negative 2.5 is osteoporosis. So he said things with weight bearing exercise. And so the last time I had it checked twice, one or three times in the past 3 years, and now it's at negative 1.9. So it's significantly better, closer to zero is better, which I was really happy with. And then I didn't go on any of the osteoporosis medications. I just stayed the course with the protocol and um, the K2. But I can understand if there was be a concern around calcium, and osteoporosis, or whatever it is people are associating calcium with, less
Yeah.
calcium with besides osteoporosis. I would just say I think the Coimbra Protocol is, the vitamin D increases the absorption of calcium, and the K2 is going to make sure it stays in your bones or
Right.
redirect it there, possibly. So it can actually be, it seems a little counterintuitive until you figure out how it works. And then you're like, oh, okay, so you can actually have increased bone density on a much lower
Mhm.
calcium diet. So if people have that concern, and they don't necessarily want to look into the medical physiology of things like I do, I would just encourage them to, you know, um, not worry about that in any sort of significant way,
Mhm.
unless they think their physician, believes that that is a cause for concern.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so.
and vitamin D is responsible for pulling calcium, from our food uh, into our system, and most people aren't getting enough vitamin D, and that's why they aren't getting enough calcium. So, but yeah, you sent me a picture of all of the supplements that you take. Is it okay if I share that, or did you send that, or did Dr. Jensen send that?
Dr. Jensen may have sent it. I don't think I sent it, but let's see if,
Okay.
yeah, you can, I think you can, that's fine with me. Let's see if it's consistent with the ones I'm.
Okay. I'll run it by you first.
Sure, no problem. Yeah. But I
Um,
would say otherwise I don't have any concerns at all about the Coimbra Protocol. I guess my question would be, what do you have to lose, right? By trying, going on a low calcium diet, doing the vitamin D, and, upping your fluid intake a little
mhm.
bit. It just seems like a um very low cost for a very significant
Right.
benefit.
Especially compared to a lot of the drugs that they have for MS, I'm sure. And I guess that might be one of my last questions, because I'm sure you are in communication with others, maybe part of, specific groups for MS. I'm sure as you've been doing your own
Yes.
research, you've seen some of what other people are saying about the medications, the treatments, and the side effects. So in comparison, what are some of the other treatments and the side effects and some of the complaints that you hear often about from patients who are going the more traditional route of treatment?
Really that is the suppression of my immune system worth it? Because it's easier to get sick and just those sort of things. Also the fatigue. I actually I facilitate a support group for MS, so I'm aware of, we talk about kind of all of these different things. And that is a primary issue, is around suppression of the immune system. Of course, there are different drugs now for MS that don't all work the same, thankfully. And so I think that the drug companies and the research has done a good job at making certain alterations that make the drugs more manageable. Um, However, yeah, the concern is around the suppression of the immune system and the fatigue, which I don't hear the medication effectively addresses, but I do hear dietary. That dietary radically changes the fatigue, which I think is the hardest symptom. So yeah, I would say those things about the drugs, and I did look into them, and kind of did my own cost benefit, right, around, oh, okay, if I take this, then what is the large research trials say? And in many instances, I didn't believe that the drugs were sufficiently tested for me to feel comfortable with them. I know they went through their own approval process, but I would have liked to see far more randomized controlled trials, and I would have liked to see a higher percentage of relapse prevention in order to take a drug that heavy, if that makes
Right, that
sense.
was worth it.
Yeah, so I didn't, when I was evaluating the research, I didn't believe that the I didn't believe that there were more benefits than costs to the drugs for me personally.
Mhm. Okay. Well, I think you made the right choice. It sounds like it, at least to me. Um, Sarah, is there anything else you would like to share before we close this today?
Yeah, what I want to say is, I think that looking into all these things is helpful, and it can take time to find things that you're comfortable with. It's a long road. I would say for me, if I could have done anything differently to shorten my course in terms of one, being diagnosed, and two, identifying a treatment, I would have said, I definitely wish that I would have pursued diagnostics earlier, and also nutrition care, because I knew I was having food related thing nutrient related things, and that is a very hard guessing game to do. Very, very difficult. Something goes in your system and maybe it doesn't affect you till 3 days later. Something else goes in and it affects you immediately. It's like it's really almost impossible, unless you do something like a radical elimination diet, which is kind of what carnivore is, taking out all of the toxins and irritants and anything allergens. But I would say, you know, you pay for your health now or you pay for your health later. So I would have sought care earlier. And I'm glad that I got multiple opinions on things, because I was misdiagnosed at first with something that was neuromyelitis optica, NMO, which is in the MS family, but it's actually in many cases more severe. And I knew that wasn't right. I looked at my own MRIs next to the research, and then I saw that I was working with a general neurologist at the time, not a specialist. So he was diagnosing a rare disease, and I thought that that was probably not something he did regularly, especially not as a specialist. And I didn't find it believable. So I
Mhm.
would say there's a lot of value in making sure that you understand and can see how the diagnosis makes sense or not for you. And then, getting follow-up care, and definitely on the nutrient components of it in from an alternative healthcare provider, which can mean an allopathic physician who's trained in
Yeah.
functional medicine or the Coimbra Protocol, somebody who is specifically trained to work with nutrients beyond that of a general physician. So
Mhm.
those are some things I guess I would say things that I, would have, I probably could have intervened sooner, had I had all of those things top of mind.
Right. Yeah, and since you mentioned it, you mentioned the diagnostic testing when you were talking about your digestion and food and everything. What other testing did you go through to kind of figure out, was it food? What foods were they? Was there something else going on in your gut?
Yes, I specifically, I did research on what kind of um, provider I wanted to work with in terms of nutrient care. And I chose a holistic nutritionist based on kind of what I saw that they study and work with. And they did the food, they did an allergen panel, and then they also did like a stool test to see, what was going on with my gut and probiotics, and so they could make very targeted recommendations. So I had very strong, severe inflammatory reactions to certain foods, which I wasn't aware of. One of them was beans, which I was raised on a vegetarian Indian diet. And so my mom is Indian. And we had chicken sometimes, but it was a lot of vegetarian related dishes, and there was beans were a staple. So it would make sense that I never felt good. So yeah, I had some, I also had flags for like yeast, mold, so staying away from things like blue cheese, those kind of nutritional yeast, those things that can just create this like chronic low grade inflammation over time. And I really think that plus metabolic issues are probably connected to that. A lot of the fatigue that is
Right.
experienced with MS, absolutely with the metabolic as well, insulin resistance for sure, which I think is another very overlooked area in terms of health. But yes, those were the flags for nutrients, and I like I said, I had kind of self-selected to okay, gluten's inflammatory. Like I was guessing, and I wish I would have just spent the few $100s and gone to the nutritionist
Got
several
your food
years
certificate.
earlier.
Yeah.
So, but I was a graduate student at the time, and I was like, I can figure it out. And I was taking supplements that had a lot of the things that my body didn't like, and it was just would have been no way for me to ever really find out unless I just went to go get the test from the expert, involved with those things. So.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, so it sounds like you did a lot of work before finding the Coimbra Protocol. You worked on your diet, healing your gut, working on some of that inflammation, and then the Coimbra Protocol is really what then, uh, emphasized your healing. But a lot of people, they'll have to, start from blank slate, I guess you could say, with the Coimbra Protocol. What I'm trying to say, it's not just vitamin D. Vitamin D is a huge part of the Coimbra Protocol, but addressing your gut health, your diet, making sure that you're hydrating. I assume exercise is important as well. Stress management is another thing that Dr. Coimbra emphasizes. I had the honor of interviewing him as well, and we got to talk for 5 or 6 hours. It was one of the best Sundays I've had in a long time.
I would imagine so.
So, but yes, it's much more complicated than just vitamin D, but it's well worth the. You can call it a challenge, you can call it a change, you can call it just the energy, the effort, but it's well worth it uh, to make those changes and find the Coimbra Protocol if it sounds like it's for you. But I think Sarah, you are a prime example of that.
Thank you. And I think the last thing I would want to say is, well, I agree, definitely agree with you. And I also think I wouldn't have been in a position to do certain things that people maybe would describe as extreme, like carnivore diet. I don't think it's extreme. I think that's how we evolved during ice ages. Um, but I don't think I think there are situations where, if your perception is, oh, this is too extreme, think about the changes you want. I wanted extreme changes for the better. And so for me, there's nothing. I don't think I wouldn't even view the changes I've made as really any sort of sacrifice because I have my health, I have my life, I have my energy levels. There's nothing restrictive about that. Having to depend on medications and things like that, I think that's restrictive. And being limited and physically debilitated, I think that's restrictive, right? But having a very limited diet and staying on some vitamin D and K2, not restrictive at all. If what I have is, the freedom to choose how I want to spend my time and not have physical limitations. I do still have some symptoms of MS, spasticity in my legs. Every once in a while, usually if I do too much exercise, which, oh wow, what a problem, right? At least I can exercise. So,
Right.
or if I have, a period every once in a while in the morning or something, if I did too much exercise the evening before, but it's nothing like how it was before. I just have had just global improvements. So, yeah, I would say for me personally, the dietary changes, the lifestyle related stuff, it's all worth it, for me, it's all worth it. And I think you get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for your time this morning. And I do want to end by stating, if somebody wants to try this, find a Coimbra Protocol practitioner, somebody who's been trained.
Mhm.
Grassroots Health is actually slowly working on creating a online Coimbra Protocol training with Dr. Coimbra and a few of his other physicians.
Great.
But yeah, don't go at this on your own. It is important to know all the different signs of potential hypercalcemia, getting too much vitamin D, and making sure that that is addressed and rectified. But again, there's so much more to gain from giving this a try. And yeah, thanks again, Sarah. And I hope to talk to you again soon.
All right. Thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.